Lyora Vance's voice rang through the Ryman auditorium like a cold blade slicing the air. "Hey, you there?" The man in the janitor's uniform at the back. "Come up here now." Hundreds of guests turned their heads in unison. On the live stream, millions were staring straight into this moment. Jalen Reed stood frozen. His hands were trembling, and the thing that made him look most out of place was the pair of yellow rubber gloves still on his hands. He had finished wiping down the stage just moments earlier. "I am sorry, ma'am. I did not think that." "Do not make excuses," Leora cut him off before he could finish. She strode forward, grabbed Jalen by the shoulder, and dragged him straight into the center of the stage lights as if pulling an object onto a table for display. "Let everyone see," she said, her voice sweet to the point of being fake, "whether you can actually sing or whether you are just taking up space here." Then Lyora turned to the band and snapped her fingers sharply. "Play Higher Ground for him." She curled her lips into a smirk. "An impossibly high note, the same note that once earned me millions." And just as the band was about to come in, Lyora leaned in close to Jalen. She switched off her own microphone, but his mic was still live. Her voice dropped to a whisper that the entire auditorium and all the viewers heard perfectly clearly. "Fail quietly, kid." The air froze. The entire hall held its breath. Jalen stood there under lights blazing like fire, with hundreds of eyes in front of him and a world behind him passing judgment through a screen. But what he did next would not just prove Lyora Vance wrong, it could also bring down everything she had built on lies. To understand why this moment matters, we need to look back at what had brought him here. Jalen Reed had not always been a man who cleaned floors. Some years earlier, he had been one of the most promising contestants on a hit talent competition where Lyora Vance sat as a judge. Jalen possessed a rare high tenor voice with a vocal range that allowed him to shift smoothly between registers, from chest voice to head voice as seamlessly as flowing water, so that listeners could not detect the exact moment his voice changed. Everyone believed Jalen would go far. Some called him the standout of that season. On the night of the finale, when everything seemed within reach, Jalen's phone vibrated backstage. The hospital. His wife Elena was in the emergency room, acute pneumonia, critical condition. Jalen stood frozen. In front of him were the lights, the millions of viewers, the opportunity he had chased his entire life. Behind him was the woman he loved. He did not hesitate. He left the show that night and ran straight to the hospital. The public turned on him instantly, irresponsible, unprofessional. Then Lyora Vance appeared on television and delivered a single sentence that shut every door. "Anyone who does not respect an opportunity does not deserve a dream." Some days later, Elena passed away. Their daughter Amara was born prematurely, carrying a hole in her heart. Jalen was blacklisted from the entertainment industry. No record label would sign him. No stage would invite him to sing. For years, Jalen survived as a janitor. Now, he and Amara lived in an old apartment in East Nashville where the heating worked in only one room. He worked 2 shifts daily, mornings cleaning the Ryman, nights washing dishes at a restaurant on Broadway. Each night he slept little. Amara needed heart surgery. Insurance covered only part of it. Jalen needed a large sum within a short time. But there was one thing Jalen never gave up. He still sang every night. He sang Amara to sleep with Elena's favorite song. Jalen always sang very softly, as if singing louder would cause the memories of Elena to crash down and crush him. Amara often whispered to her father, "Daddy's voice makes my heart feel better." The nurses had noticed it too. Amara's heart rate became noticeably more stable whenever she heard Jalen sing. No one could explain why, but Jalen knew it was not technique, not pitch. It was love, the only thing he still had left to give his daughter. Lyora Vance hosted a gala called Voices for Hope at the Ryman, raising funds for the Children's Hospital and its congenital heart treatment program, the very condition Amara was suffering from. That night, Jalen was on the evening shift. He knew the money raised that night could help save his daughter's life. From the upper balcony, Jalen quietly looked down at the giant screen displaying images of children with heart disease. Among them was Amara. He had signed consent forms allowing the hospital to use his daughter's image. The rehearsal began. Jalen was cleaning the glass when Lyora walked in to warm up. The band played the opening chords of Higher Ground. Leora's voice rang out powerfully in the lower sections, solid, controlled. But when the song reached the bridge where the melody climbs toward the high note, Jalen sensed something wrong. Lyora's neck tightened, her shoulders lifted. When she tried to reach the high note, her voice cracked. Lyora cleared her throat. "My throat is too dry." Then she ordered the sound technician, "Turn up the backing track louder. I need support." The technician adjusted the settings. Lyora sang again. This time the high note rang out perfectly. Too perfect. Jalen stood frozen. His ears had been trained through years of studying music. He could distinguish between a live voice and a recorded one. He heard the faint metallic sheen of digital sound. That high note did not come from Leora's voice, it came from the speakers. Jalen remembered some years earlier. Anyone who does not respect an opportunity does not deserve a dream. She had destroyed his career by labeling him unprofessional while she herself was cheating. He opened his phone and searched for information about Leora's previous galas. A small article from the previous year revealed that only a small portion of funds from Voices for Hope reached the hospital. The remaining was listed as administrative expenses. Jalen felt something ignite in his chest, not anger but resolve. A man who had lost his wife raising a heartsick child alone, standing in a cold janitor's room and deciding enough. The gala began. Jalen finished his shift and prepared to leave, but as he reached the wings, he stopped. On stage, Leora appeared in a shimmering sequined gown. "Ladies and gentlemen," Leora said, "tonight is not just about music. It is about hope, about giving these children a chance to fight." The cameras swept to images of children with heart disease. Among them was Amara. Leora continued, "Every ticket, every donated dollar will go directly to help these little hearts." Jalen stared at his daughter's face on the screen, and in that moment he knew he could not let Leora continue lying for one more second. Leora introduced Higher Ground. This song is proof that when you believe in yourself, you can reach unimaginable heights. The band came in. When the song moved toward the high note, the sound rang out. Perfect, clean, flawless. But it was not a human voice. It was digital, artificial. So we do. Jalen stepped out of the shadows. No plan, no script, just a man who had been silent for years, and a courageous decision. Leora saw him, her eyes narrowed. She recognized him immediately. A cold smile spread across her lips. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a special guest." The lights snapped around. Jalen stood there in his janitor's uniform. "Jalen Reed," Leora introduced. "Some of you may remember him from the talent competition. A true talent, a true potential." She paused deliberately, until he walked away right before the finale. No explanation, no apology. "My wife was dying," Jalen said. Leora did not hear, or pretended not to hear. "And now look at him cleaning up after successful people. How touching." A few cold laughs rippled through the hall. "Come up here, Jalen. Sing for us." Jalen did not want to. Every instinct screamed, "Leave, go back to Amara." But if he turned away, Leora would win. She would keep lying, keep making money off children with heart disease. And one day, Amara would grow up, watch this video, and think her father was a coward. Jalen stepped onto the stage. Each step felt like it weighed a ton. Before the band could play, Jalen spoke. "Miss Vance, I have a question." Leora raised an eyebrow. "Go ahead. Could you turn off the backing track?" The air froze. Leora smiled, but her eyes did not. "The track is part of the arrangement, Jalen." "But during rehearsal, you sang without it," Jalen said quietly, the microphone picking it up clearly. "You sang alone." "Sound check is different from a performance," Leora replied, her voice tightening. "Then could you sing first? Just you, no track, so I can learn how you do it." Seconds of silence. Leora let out a sharp laugh. "You want me to audition in front of you?" "No, I just want to know whether you can actually sing." The auditorium exploded. Gasp, shocked laughter. Leora stared at Jalen. "Of course I can sing. I've been doing it for years." "Then prove it." Leora spun toward the technician. "Turn off the track, all of it." The technician hesitated, then pressed the button. The music became sparse, bare, nowhere to hide. Leora Vance raised the microphone and began to sing. At first, it was powerful, confident, years of training evident in every controlled breath. But as the pitch continued to rise, something changed. Her neck tightened. The sound was still there, but no longer natural. Then Leora reached for the high note. Her voice broke. The sound shattered, splintering like glass hitting the floor. Leora stopped. She cleared her throat, covering it with a strained smile. "Sorry, my throat is dry. That is why people use tracks to protect the voice during long shows." "You cannot sing it," Jalen said quietly. Leora spun around. Her smile was now a thin, icy line. "I said my voice is tired. But on your album, you sing that note many times," Jalen cut in. "I counted. And in every live performance video online, you hit it perfectly, every single time." The audience began to stir. Phones were raised. "What exactly are you implying?" Leora's voice sharpened. I have perfect pitch. I can hear frequencies. The note on your album is the high C. The note you just sang is lower, and the voice on the album does not sound like yours. It belongs to another woman. The credits list additional vocals by Celeste Bain. The theater erupted. Journalists typed furiously. Cameras abandoned their fixed angles. Leora strode toward Jalen. You need to shut up now. Why? Because I am telling the truth? Because you do not know what you're talking about. I know what I heard during rehearsal. He looked straight into the lens. That high note is not yours. You have been lip-syncing for years. Before Leora could respond, a voice rang out from the wings. Actually, he is right. Maya Torres, Leora's sound engineer, stepped into the light. I have been Leora's sound engineer for years. At every performance, I played that backing track. She has never been able to sing that note live. Not once. Leora stared at Maya. You are fired, she whispered. I know, but he is a single father raising a daughter with a heart condition, and he has been braver than I have for years. Hundreds of people held their breath. Millions watched online. Ridiculous, Leora snapped. You expect people to believe a janitor over me? I have awards. I have sold millions of albums. Then prove her wrong, someone shouted. Sing the note. Leora's face drained white. Fine, she said coldly. You think you are so smart. Then you sing right now. No preparation, no warm-up. No second chance. Jalen's hands trembled. From the guest seating, an old voice rang out. You have got this, Jalen. Jalen turned. Elias Grant, the longtime janitor who had worked at the Ryman for decades, was standing up, clapping slowly. Sing the way you sing for Amara. Jalen closed his eyes, took a deep breath, felt the air fill his lungs. Every lesson, every memory, every pain settling deep into his bones. He opened his eyes. Play higher ground, no track. The music began, and Jalen started to sing. His voice was gentle, almost hesitant. A few audience members exchanged glances. He sang well, solid, but nothing extraordinary. Yet then came the pre-chorus. Jalen's voice opened up, power increasing without losing control. Something raw, something honest, something Leora's polished performance had lacked. He was not performing. He was testifying. The melody climbed. His voice followed effortlessly, light and clear. No sign of strain. Leora shifted, her jaw tightened. The bridge arrived. Jalen transitioned registers smoothly. The entire auditorium sat up straight. Then Jalen reached for the high note. The sound burst out, crystal clear. No break, no strain, no tricks. Just a pure whistle register note, ringing like a crystal bell. He held it perfect. Someone in the front row gasped, but Jalen was not done. He pushed higher, a range that even Leora's backing track had never dared to touch. His face was calm, almost serene. Then he brought the voice back down. Every transition seamless, every note a small miracle. When the final word faded, no one moved. Then the theater exploded. Hundreds of people leapt to their feet, shouting, applauding, faces streaked with tears. The live stream went wild. Within moments, shares exploded. From the front row, a legendary R&B artist stood up crying. That is the best thing I have ever heard. Jalen, you did not just hit that note. You owned it. A producer who had worked with major artists shook his head. I need to say this. I have been in this industry for decades, and tonight we just witnessed a janitor sing a note that the woman who made it famous truly cannot. The weight of his words pressed down on everyone. The producer turned to the audience. The album recording. I was the mixer. I was there. Jalen is right. That is not Leora's voice. It is Celeste Bain, a studio singer. She was paid a small fee and forced to sign an NDA. She was never properly credited. The theater erupted again. Journalists typed furiously. Leora finally found her voice. This is insane. You are going to destroy my career over a backing track. Everyone uses tracks. But they do not claim to be singing live, the legendary artist shot back. They do not sell tickets for live performances and lip sync. That is fraud, Leora. Leora turned to Jalen. You will regret this, she whispered just loud enough for the microphone to catch it. You, your little family, and your sick daughter. I promise you will never work in this industry again. The threat hung in the air, recorded by every camera. But Jalen was no longer afraid. For the first time in years, he felt free. I do not work in this industry, he said steadily. I sing because I love it, and you cannot take that from me. He paused. But maybe it is time someone took it from you. Hundreds of people rose to their feet, applauding not for Leora Vance, but for a father who refused to lie. Leora turned and walked off the stage. The chaos lasted for some time. Jalen sat backstage on a folding chair. Elias sat beside him. His phone vibrated from the hospital. Amara had watched the live stream. "Daddy, I saw it. You sang so beautifully." Jalen's throat tightened. Then Leora's lawyer appeared. Rowena Blackwell, a woman in expensive suits with a polite smile that never reached her eyes. "Mr. Reed," she said, "I represent Miss Vance. I am here to resolve an unfortunate misunderstanding." "There is no misunderstanding," Jalen said. "Your client cannot sing the notes that made her famous. That is fraud." Rowena placed documents on the table. "If you sign this, everything goes away." Jalen read. The document said he made false accusations, that he apologized, that he was seeking attention. "It is a mutual agreement," Rowena said. "In return, Miss Vance will not pursue legal action, and as a gesture of goodwill, she will fund a music scholarship for you." She paused. "We are also aware your daughter needs surgery. We will cover the full cost." A large sum, enough to save Amara, enough to change his life. But Jalen was a man who had watched his wife die. He had raised a heartsick child alone for years, and he knew some things cannot be bought with money. "And if I do not sign?" Rowena's smile faded. "Miss Vance will pursue defamation charges. Your daughter's school district has also been informed that a large donation to its music program is now at risk. Sign here and everyone moves on. Or refuse and watch your family drown in legal fees you cannot afford." Jalen stared at the papers. He thought of Amara lying in her hospital bed, of surgery soon. Then he thought of the truth. "No," Jalen said, "I am not signing. I did not lie. She did, and I will not say I lied just because she is rich and I am not." "Then I will see you in court." Rowena gathered her briefcase. "By tomorrow morning there will be stories about you, private things, painful things. Remember that you chose this." She left. Elias spoke softly. You sure?" Jalen nodded. "I am sure. I will not teach my daughter that the truth can be bought with fear." "Then we fight." "We fight." The next morning, Jalen woke to his phone buzzing. The screen was flooded with thousands of notifications. The first post showed a photo of their apartment, peeling paint, a broken security gate. The caption read, "This is where Jalen Reed lives while he accuses Leora Vance of cheating. Clearly, he is just trying to escape poverty." The next post showed a photo of a free lunch he had received years earlier. Living off handouts his whole life, and this was never about truth, it was about money. By midday, the smear campaign was in full force. News sites published articles. Sources close to the Reed family claimed Jalen planned the entire incident as an extortion scheme. By afternoon, Leora's legal team filed a large defamation lawsuit, not only against Jalen, but against Celeste Bain, against the producer, against Maya Torres, against anyone who dared to tell the truth. By evening, another outlet claimed Amara did not actually have a heart condition, that it was all staged. Jalen sat on the old sofa watching lies pile on top of each other. Then something changed. Celeste Bain posted a video sitting in a professional recording studio. "My name is Celeste Bain. I am the voice Leora Vance has been selling as her own for years. That man told the truth last night. I sing in the Whistle Register Note in Higher Ground and other songs. I was paid a small fee per song and forced to sign a non-disclosure agreement." She held up papers. "This is my contract. This is the proof. And I stayed silent while a janitor was being crushed for daring to expose something I was too afraid to say." Within hours, several other studio singers came forward. Each had contracts, each had recordings, each confirmed Jalen Reed was telling the truth. By the next day, public opinion completely reversed. Jalen realized he was no longer alone. The courtroom was smaller than Jalen had imagined. Leora Vance sat at the plaintiff's table with several attorneys. Jalen sat at the defense table between his attorney Carol Linford and Elias. He wore the only white dress shirt he owned. Judge Sophia Lang entered. "Miss Blackwell," the judge said, "you are seeking a gag order against a janitor." "Your Honor," Rowena replied, "the defendant's occupation does not diminish the harm caused by his false statements." "Are they false?" the judge cut in. "That is precisely the issue. Those statements were made after your client publicly humiliated him on stage." Carol Linford stood. "If the court permits, I would like to present footage from the gala night." The courtroom watched. They saw Leora drag Jalen onto the stage. They clearly heard "Fail Quietly" broadcast through an open microphone. They watched Leora fail to hit the high note. "Your Honor," Carol continued, "the plaintiff did not summon this man because he lied. She summoned him because he told the truth. That is not defamation. That is consequence." Judge Lang turned to Rowena. "Do you have any evidence that Mr. Reed's statements are false?" "Your Honor, the music industry routinely uses vocal support." "I did not ask that. Yes or no?" Rowena hesitated. We believe the context has been misunderstood. So that is a no. Miss Linford, do you have evidence supporting Mr. Reed's statements? Yes, I call Celeste Bain. Celeste stepped to the stand. The contracts, the NDAs, the recordings proving Celeste's voice was used on Leora's albums, the emails instructing that Celeste was never to be credited. Miss Bain, Carol asked, when you heard Jalen Reed say that Leora Vance could not sing that note, what did you think? I thought finally someone said it. And was he right? Yes, completely. Judge Lang turned to Leora Vance. Miss Vance, I will ask you one question. Can you sing the note at issue? Leora's face went pale. Your Honor, I fail to see how this is relevant. Highly relevant. You are asking this court to silence people who say you cannot reach that note. Then prove them wrong. Sing it. Leora looked at her lawyers, at the judge, at Jalen, her mouth opened, then closed. Not a single sound. Just as I thought, Judge Lang said, striking the gavel. The request for an injunction is denied. Furthermore, the court sanctions the plaintiff for filing a frivolous action intended to silence truthful speech. The courtroom erupted. Mr. Reed, you are free to continue telling your story. That is called the First Amendment. It protects the truth even when the truth is inconvenient. Outside the courtroom, a journalist was waiting. Jalen, how do you feel? I feel like I can finally breathe again. That evening, the news aired nationally. Millions of people watched. During the closing credits, Leora's remaining sponsors withdrew. Her record label terminated her contract. Her major residencies were canceled. The awards committee announced it was reviewing her awards. A career built on stolen voices officially collapsed, ended by a father who refused to stay silent. But Jalen's greatest victory came soon after. His phone rang early one morning. Mr. Reed, this is the office of a renowned musician. He would like to cover the full medical costs for your daughter. Jalen could not speak. Tears spilled out. Within a day, other major artists offered to cover Amara's recovery expenses. A call to action spread. A large sum was raised quickly. But the most important moment was far quieter. Amara's surgery was scheduled soon. The doctor explained everything. Open heart surgery, several hours, a risk of complications. But without surgery, Amara would not live to see her 10th birthday. On the morning of the operation, Jalen sat by Amara's bed. Daddy, her voice was tiny. I am scared. Jalen held her hand. I am scared too, but you still stood up for what was right, even when you were scared. Jalen smiled, his eyes burning. Because you taught me what bravery is, Amara, every single day. Amara smiled, a smile just like Elena's. Will you sing for me, Daddy? Jalen sang as they wheeled her toward the operating room. He sang until the doors closed behind her. Then he collapsed into a chair in the waiting room. The next several hours were the longest of Jalen's life. At the end of those hours, the operating room doors opened. The doctor stepped out, pulling down his mask, exhausted but smiling. The surgery was successful. Your daughter's heart is healthy now. Jalen broke down sobbing. The months of fear and pain, all of it released. Amara lived. His daughter would be okay. Sometime later, Amara woke up in the recovery room. Jalen sat beside her. Daddy, Amara whispered. My love, you did it. Did you sing for me yet? Do you want to hear it? Your singing makes my heart feel better. So Jalen sang right there in the recovery room. The nurses stopped to listen. His voice was still a little rusty after years of silence, but beautiful. Not because of technique, not because of fame, but because it was real. When the song ended, Amara smiled and drifted back to sleep. And for the first time in years, Jalen felt something shift inside his chest. His voice had come back, not for the stage, not for money, but for love. Sometime later, Jalen Reed stood backstage at the Ryman Auditorium once again, but this time he was no longer the man who mopped the floors. He returned as a performing artist. Amara, now older, healthy and radiant, sat in the front row. Her heart had been repaired. The surgical scar on her chest had faded into a thin silver line, like the mark of a battle already won. Jalen recorded his debut album, Silent No More. He co-wrote it with Celeste Bain, a collection of songs about reclaiming courage, speaking the truth, daring to say no when the world expects you to stay silent. The album found great success quickly. Leora Vance never recovered. Sometime after the ruling, she filed for bankruptcy. The class action lawsuit ended with millions in ticket refunds. Both awards were officially revoked. But this story is not about Leora Vance's fall. It is about what was lifted up. Jalen stood backstage at the Ryman. Before stepping onto the stage, he stopped by the custodial room, the familiar smell of cleaning solution and floor wax. Elias was there holding a mop. You did it, kid, Elias said. placing a hand on Jalen's shoulder, not like a father to a son, but like two grown men who respected each other. No, we did. Everyone who was ever told their voice did not matter. Jalen walked onto the stage. Amara sat in the front row wearing a t-shirt that read, "My dad's voice saved me." The auditorium was packed, not with wealthy patrons, but with working people who had lined up early, janitors, nurses, teachers, single parents, people who had been told their voices were insignificant. Jalen opened with "Silent No More." His voice was not perfect. There were still traces of years of silence, but it was real. For the final song, Jalen called Amara onto the stage. "This is my daughter. Some time ago, I almost lost her. In that fear, I found my voice again. Not for fame, not for money, but for love." They sang together, father and daughter. As the melody faded, the cameras caught the Ryman's custodial staff, the people who once worked alongside Jalen. They stood applauding, many in tears. A sign was raised, "We always knew you could sing." Jalen looked out at the audience, people who had once been invisible, now seen, and spoke his final words to everyone who was ever told to stay silent. "You are not invisible anymore.